He had money, power, arrogance, and she was just the help, or so he thought. Billionaire Richard Vance humiliated his black maid, Angela Hayes, mocking her in front of wealthy guests, belittling her dreams and treating her like she didn't matter. But what Richard didn't know was that Angela wasn't just a maid. She was hiding a mind like a vault, a past built in silence, and a plan that would bring his empire crumbling to its knees. What she did next didn't just shock him, it shook the world. Vance estate in the Hamptons was a symbol of power. White marble floors, golden chandeliers, manicured hedges, taller than men. It looked like a palace, but inside, behind those grand doors, cruelty hid in the details. Angela Hayes walked those halls every day in silence. Braided hair tied back neatly, uniform pressed, head lowered. She was invisible by design. In this world, staying quiet kept you safe. Richard Vance, tech mogul, media darling, was adored by the public. But to Angela, he was a storm in a $1,000 suit. His words, sharp. His gaze, cold. And his cruelty, casual. His presence filled the room like a bad smell you couldn't get rid of. She saw it all, the way he snapped at staff, the way he joked about the poor, and the way his tone always shifted when speaking to someone like her. It wasn't just superiority, it was spite. One morning, over breakfast with investors, Richard raised his glass of orange juice and spat out a piece of pulp. His lip curled in theatrical disgust. "Angela," he barked, "did I ask for pulp?" "No, sir," she replied softly, already reaching to take the glass. "Then why am I chewing my drink like a damn cow?" The table chuckled awkwardly, some of them uncomfortable, others used to the routine. "Honestly," Richard muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "How hard is it to follow instructions? Maybe if you people spent less time protesting and more time learning how to work." Silence fell over the room like a wet cloth. Angela said nothing. Her face didn't change, but inside she felt it again. The shift, the slow burn, the quiet snap of something cracking. Again, Angela wasn't some helpless servant. She held a degree in economics from Howard University, top of her class. She had interned on Wall Street, built algorithms for brokerage firms. But when her mother was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, she gave it all up to care for her. The medical bills drained her savings. And when her mother passed, job prospects had faded. So she took the only work she could find at the Vance estate. It was meant to be temporary, a way to rebuild. But years passed, and the world didn't slow down to let her back in. Yet even in the role of a maid, Angela never stopped thinking, calculating, learning. She watched, listened, memorized every shady deal Richard made behind closed doors. Every phone call to offshore accounts, every arrogant whisper about buying influence and bending laws. She documented everything, not out of vengeance, out of purpose. She knew a day would come when silence would no longer protect her. And when that day came, she intended to be ready. The night of the Hope for the Future, gala, was supposed to be a celebration of wealth disguised as charity. The Vance estate lit up with spotlights, the air thick with perfume and pretense. Angela wore a fresh uniform, the same black and white fabric she always wore, moving like a shadow through the room. She handed out champagne, refilled glasses, and dodged glares from people who refused to see her. That's when it happened. Richard, red-faced from wine and ego, spotted her across the room. "Angela!" he called, slurring just enough to sound dangerous. She stepped forward. He draped an arm over the shoulder of a senator and pointed at her like she was an object on display. "You know," he laughed, "if we gave more scholarships to people like her, maybe they wouldn't be stuck scrubbing floors." The senator chuckled uneasily. Some guests laughed too loud. Others looked away. Angela stood still. She didn't flinch, but she noticed something Richard didn't. The flash of a phone screen held low by a reporter nearby recording. The video hit the internet like a grenade. Within hours, Vance Exposed was trending on every platform. The clip circulated fast. Richard's words, the laughter, Angela's silence. The backlash was instant. Celebrities, activists, and politicians condemned him. His PR team rushed to respond. First, they denied. Then they deflected. Then they begged her to issue a statement, say it was misunderstood, taken out of context. Angela didn't respond with words. Instead, she sent an encrypted file to 3 investigative journalists. Inside was over a year's worth of recordings, images, spreadsheets and emails, proof of insider trading, hidden offshore accounts, shady land deals and bribes. Richard Vance hadn't just insulted his maid, he had armed her. News exploded. Headlines blared. From maid to whistleblower, Angela Hayes breaks billionaire scandal. Within days, federal agents raided the Vance estate. Richard was arrested on camera, shouting that he was the victim of a smear campaign. But the evidence was airtight. Angela watched it all unfold from her small apartment, still wearing her quiet expression, but inside she felt peace. Not triumph. Just peace. She had reclaimed the narrative. In court, Richard stood pale and dishevelled as the judge read the charges. Insider trading, tax fraud, obstruction of justice. 20 years, no parole. Asked by reporters why she didn't speak up earlier, Angela simply said he wasn't listening. She didn't sell her story. She started the Angela Hayes Initiative to train underprivileged youth in tech, finance and leadership. Grants poured in. Forbes called her the quiet storm who shook Wall Street. But Angela stayed grounded. When the Vance estate went up for auction, she bought it, not to boast, but to transform it. Chandeliers became LED lights. The ballroom became classrooms. A place once built to exclude, now empowered. One day, a former guest stared in disbelief. "You run this place now." Angela smiled. "No, I built it." She had, out of silence, out of pain, out of being overlooked. Because sometimes justice doesn't wear a robe. Sometimes it wears a maid's uniform. Walks quietly, waits, watches, until the silence finally breaks. Richard Vance thought he could buy the world, but he couldn't buy respect. And he couldn't silence the help. Because Angela Hayes wasn't just a maid. She was a storm. And when she finally spoke, the whole world listened.